Question then, in terms of I think all these tips that you're saying are really good in terms of splitting, you know, creating the space so that you're in work mode and off mode.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you like? How do you kind of regulate your off mode? What's your kind of more?
How do you regulate your off mode? So you're not always in work mode, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I had to force myself to do that yesterday. After the Launchpad call, I just like jumped into a bunch of stuff and just got really into it. And it got to about 5:30, and I was like, oh, it's Saturday, like I should have a day off. And so I like closed my computer, and it's pretty much when I do that, it's kind of like, okay, it's no more digital time. And we get, it's so easy to be sucked into being on a screen all of the time. So for me, I try to draw those boundaries, and a nice way to do it is actually just select one day, which is a no digital day. Like it's pretty much like a Saturday is you spend time with your friends, you go social, you go to get your things for the house or whatever it is, and you really need that, because otherwise you could be like a lot of time in front of the screen. And I like to read. I like to I do like to listen to music and stuff like that. So I do try to find ways to mix it up. So there's but I have to admit, like sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah. It's a good thing to be aware of. It's a good question. Thanks for asking, Rachel. Okay, so let me just jump back into this. So we were talking about communication, and so just get this thing to work. Seems little controls in the way. So we're talking about communication. So stand-up meetings. So this is about being interactive and connected to people. And another thing about communication is email. And I've seen this just recently. My wife works with the British Council here in Sri Lanka, and she teaches English. She's in the management team and she teaches English, and they've had to move all of their team into an online space over the last week and a half to deliver their courses to their customers. And as an example, on a Sunday, they'll have on a Sunday, they have 1,000 kids go through the center. So you can imagine how much of a challenge it can be to do these things. So what I'm going to do is just show you an example of how to get rid of email. My wife and her team are always communicating with email, and you would not believe how much of the message gets lost in translation all of the time. And personally, I'm not much of a fan of email. So some people, particularly in the online space, have this concept of inbox zero, and it's pretty much like you just have no messages in your inbox. The idea is to try and get rid of them, or to process them each day. And there's a tool called Unroll Me. And what Unroll Me does is it kind of plugs into your email and it scans everything and tells you how many subscriptions you've got. And then it pretty much automatically unsubscribes from all of the things that you choose. It's a really neat tool, because you can end up, like my email box is always ending up with a whole bunch of different subscriptions and stuff like that. So what I thought I'd do is just quickly show you a demo of Unroll Me. So I'm just gonna jump in here, share my screen again. Can you can see my screen still, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is Unroll Me. And I'm just going to log in and sign, so you can sign in with all these things. Blah, blah, blah. And so it's just going to hook me up with any of my Google accounts. So I'm just going to select this one. This is the one that I use for the Launchpad. And so, so Unroll Me has just plugged itself into my inbox, and it's found that I've got 33 new subscriptions, and so I can scan through these from A to Z, and just decide whatever action I'm going to do with them, and like this is like a thing. Yeah, get rid of Grammarly. I don't like that. And you can add these to roll up. It's like it's like a place where once a week, basically, Unroll Me they'll collect all your emails together in one place, and then they'll email you once a week to say, here go all your emails. So it's a neat little tool. I use it quite a lot just to keep on top of things. Let me just go back and get this PowerPoint, this keynote thing going again. Right, so let's Unroll Me. With your communication, the plan when you're working remotely is to be concise and clear. And it's really easy to get sucked into being in meetings. There's two sides to this. You do need to have more meetings because you need to communicate more often, but the idea is to try and make them really organized and short and concise. And when you're communicating with people, getting to the point is really, really useful. And that's why today we've set up using Slack. Slack is a great organizational tool for bringing teams together to communicate. Some people use it for just chatting and for communicating between different team members, and others also use it for managing projects. Slack have a whole bunch of ways that you can integrate other tools to make it a bit broader tool to use. So what I'd encourage you to do while we're on the call is to use Slack in the background if you've got anything that you want to share with other people in the connecting and collaborating channel. So you see with my picture here, on the left-hand side are all sorts of different workspaces. They're all different teams that I'm a part of. The one down the bottom is remote working, that's for us today. And you've got channels, and so I can control which team members are in which channels, and you can get different communication threads going as well. And a nice way that it works is it uses hashtags to organize some of your communications. So let's just have a 5-minute break. I think we're kind of halfway through where we want to be. Give you a chance to just get some water. You can have a chat in the background. I'm just going to nip downstairs and grab myself something. And we'll just take a 5-minute break. We'll be back here shortly. Let's get started. I was just having a look at the questions that people put in the file that you all filled in, and I can see that a number of the things revolve around some obvious points, which are things like you're working on your own, you're isolated, there's this kind of lack of in a way, a lack of social connection, and that's what we're used to. when we're in the workspace, and that can sometimes be a bit challenging to manage, and it really comes down to the type of person you are. If you're an introvert, it's not a deal, and I'm an introvert, so it's just kind of you take it in your stride. And if you're an extrovert, like right now, being kind of stuck at home, it can probably make you feel like you want to climb up the walls. So it can be a bit of a challenge, for sure. And what I do is I have two different communities of people who live around the world, and we connect quite often on a regular basis. And so we're just friends that have met through various different activities we've done, programs like this, at workshops that we've been to, like in London, and we get together on sometimes a weekly basis, sometimes a monthly basis, sometimes it's quarterly. And so somebody just reached out to me out of the blue. We hadn't kind of been together for a while, and said, "How about we all just get together?" So it's like me. There's a woman who runs a business in Belgium. There's somebody in New Zealand, somebody in Poland, and another person in Slovakia. And so we just kind of get together, spend a couple of hours, catch up on life. And so I have 3 of these types of groups. And for me, like I need that social connection too, even though I'm an introvert. And when I'm working in a team of people, when we're working together on a project, and that's typically the situation I have, I tend to do some project management. The social side is it's like getting together a little bit before the call and just having an informal chat, something like you're kind of at work, having a cup of tea or a coffee or something like that, and getting together before you go into the formal stuff, and just shooting the breeze about what happened in the weekend and that kind of thing. And engineering in these times into the way that you go about your working is really, really useful. And it's even more so important at this kind of time, that people have been thrown in the deep end with all of this stuff. And it's so, like, it can be devastating for some people. Like they're really out on their own, trying to work out how to interact in this space. And so I like to be the kind of person who goes out and connects with some of these other people, and people need it. People need connection. So holding a bit of empathy for other people, a bit of compassion, just reaching out to other people in your organization and just kind of going, "Hey, how are you?" You know, these are other ways of connecting, that aren't only about the social thing. And you can also get together, and a friend of mine, he's got a team in Hungary. And so what he's doing is just having a half an hour in the day where they get together, have a cup of tea or coffee and some cake or something you made or whatever it is. It's just a chill out time, you know. So there are ways to make these things work. But ultimately, we're all social creatures, and we know what it feels like right now. You've got to get outside and mix it up with another bunch of friends or something like that to get that sense of fulfillment, that social fulfillment. If you're somebody who's running a team as a leader, it can be quite striking in this kind of environment about who's interacting and who's not. And sometimes it's like this. It's the internet. This online remote working can be kind of quite a strong filter. It shows up that some people intuitively will, or in their character set, will just go out and be self-sufficient. Like they'll find a way to resolve their own problems. They'll just go out and do it. They're kind of self-sustaining. And then you've got probably 80% of everybody else who want to be collaborative people. They want to work in a team. They rely on interaction and communication with other people in a different way. They need that sounding board in order to be able to work. They need it. They need to be able to work like this. And so it can be a strange thing as a leader, expecting that maybe you've asked some people to help you out and to go off and do some things, and find out that like nothing's happened, like zero, you know. And you can help make that work by encouraging your team to work together and in certain ways. And the way to go about doing this is to break down some of the tasks. So in our normal work environment, people kind of consider you go to work, you work a certain amount of hours, you get paid for the amount of hours that you work. And in the online environment, the whole hourly thing doesn't really work, because it's really hard to enforce productivity. You can't imagine what other people are doing at home, and you don't know, like there's no way that they're not in a seat in your office. There's no way that you can keep an eye on them, really. So one way to manage this is to shift from having an hourly kind of focus to an outcome kind of focus, which is what results are people achieving. And so you kind of break down your work in such a way that it's easy for people to get something done in a day. And that it's easy for them to demonstrate that they get these things done in the day.
David, would you say as well that if you're working from home, you can actually work a lot more intensely? You know, say you have a 2-hour stint in front of your laptop, what you're doing there versus what you're doing in the office. So that whole, you know, if you did 7 hours in the office versus 7 hours at home, you're probably the 7 hours at home, you're going to be doing a lot more kind of focus than being interrupted and stuff. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, it totally, it is right. Yeah, you've got it. So one benefit of working on an outcome basis is that you can say to your team, everybody's got 3 things to do today. When you get those 3 things finished, that's the end of your day, you're done. So some people it might take 3 hours, other people it might take 5 hours, some it might take 10, whatever it is. But it means that the work gets done, it's easy to present, and that people certainly can focus on getting things done. You know, that it's a realistic expectation that they can focus, because they can manage these distractions. Has anybody else got any questions along that line before I kind of move on from the working from home and working with teams thing? Just going to jump back into my keynote thing here and catch up. So making the most of technology. Here we are, we're on a Zoom call, and there is so much that you can use with technology to make your life a lot easier. And a lot of things that we that we do in the office tend to be quite unproductive without the use of technology. A simple example I'm going to relate is right now in this situation, we have to arrange for people to get food delivered to our house. And the local businesses, basically the way they operate is that they send out a product list. So it's just a list of all the stuff in their shop, and they send out a phone number and maybe an email address. And so they take orders that way, over the phone or via email. And they respond to each individual order. And you can use technology to just set up automated systems that allows them to take all of the orders and to deliver them without really any more communication with the customer. They just and so there are ways that you can build these systems to, sorry, Zoom's kind of got in my way again. Ways to build these systems to make things work a lot more easily for you. So we use technology tools for collaborating, for chatting, for documenting, for scheduling things, for sharing automation, and for keeping on track with what needs to be done. I use the Google suite of tools. If people haven't come across Google Drive before, it's like a cloud-based sharing tool. And of course, most people know what Gmail is, but Google has tens, if not hundreds, of different apps that you can use and plug into that allow you to set up systems to make things work really easily. Today we use Docs, and we used it in a collaborative sense where everybody was working in the same document together. And I do this quite often. I'll like write something, I'll get in touch with a friend that I'm trying to produce some work with, and we'll work in tandem at trying to bash out some kind of piece of work in a document together. And it's also really useful for when you're reviewing, editing, that kind of thing too. The thing about it is that it's all kind of techy, and when you're at home and remote working, you kind of need to start learning about becoming not a tech whiz, but being able to be proficient at using the tools. And good tools are intuitive. There's so much stuff out there that you can use that is that you don't need to have much of a technical background to be able to use it. But there's a problem. It's always a hassle, and particularly now, a lot of people that would normally get the IT guy involved to fix something might find that they can't get hold of the IT guy, or if you want like a printer or whatever, that kind of thing. But there are the ways that these people can kind of jump in and help you out remotely. One of the big things is about like how you manage all your documents and things. Obviously, keeping things in the cloud is a really useful thing because you can share it with everybody. You can use it on a bunch of different devices. And like I mentioned, I use Google Drive. So what I do is I set up folders to manage my stuff, and I color code them and number them. So I've got like on the left side, you can see there, I've got like my personal folder, work. Actually, the David Webb one is my kind of launch pad folder. It's about me and my personal development. Work, got my personal stuff, things about finance and money, and I've got an archive thing. And I set up these same kind of systems across, same folder structure on my computer, on my file system on my computer, and any other kind of thing that I use. So when I go into it, it's always the same. It helps me manage all of my files really usefully. You have to really think about health and well-being. I talked before about screen time. This is a picture of me and some of my buddies. The guy on the bottom right wears these blue blocker glasses, and like I remember as a kid, these were like some kind of weird fashion statement back then. But he wears them to block out blue light, and it just takes the strain off his eyes. He doesn't care about whether he looks cool or not. It just kind of saves his eyes. And they're actually really fashionable styles of these glasses that you can get nowadays that just take all of that out of eye strain. But also using devices in the evening can be a real problem. It affects your sleep. It changes the way that your serotonin works and the kind of putting you to sleep hormones. So some companies like Apple are designing these tools into your devices now. There's another tool that I'll come to. Is it down here? No, called Flux. And what fluxes is it basically changes your laptop stream color to like a yellower color as the sun goes down. It connects with your time zone. And I've got a resources sheet that I'll share with you later that's got some of these tools in it with links. Obviously, you want to keep fit, and right now you've got to kind of move around and do these kind of things like yoga at home. I try to organize my day in such a way that I get my exercise done in the morning, and that sets me up with energy to deal with the rest of the day. We talked about teams, but I want to talk about these guys. I shared a thing about Simon Sinek and the group earlier today. This is his team. They have a whole bunch of things about how they connect and take care of each other. They interact in such a way that you're appreciative and grateful for the other work that people in your team have done during the week or the day to support you get what you need done. And so they take 5 or 10 minutes to have these collaborative sessions. You can have them every day, but I would suggest maybe at least once a week to get your team together and to get them to bond. It is about appreciating people and to really show that if you're managing teams that you value the work that they're doing. And in a remote team, the kind of a top-down structure doesn't work so well. You need to have a bit of a flatter structure. So it requires team managers and maybe even executives to get in amongst it and to be present on these kind of calls. I think it's a challenge that a lot of businesses are going to have to kind of deal with at the moment. Managing these kind of meetings requires scheduling, and there's this cool tool called World Time Buddy, and what it does is it helps you work out different time zones of how to get a team together. The other day I had a call between somebody in London, I was here in Colombo, and somebody in Australia. And so you can just kind of add different cities, and what it does is it allows you to see the relative timings, so you can then schedule work times for your meetings. And there are other scheduling tools like Doodle, which is kind of it allows people to suggest the times that they're available in order to get a meeting organized as well. Zoom, we're all in Zoom. This is about to drop us out of a call right now. What we're going to do is jump back in on the same link, and then I'll take you through just getting Zoom set up for those who haven't already had a go at it. I think it's a useful exercise, but I'll just check with everybody about it when we come back in. So I'm just going to drop out of the meeting. Like before, use the same link to come back in on the call. Okay. Thanks for your patience with the Zoom link. It's one of these things, it's the way it operates on a free account. And I don't use it enough to warrant buying the Pro service, but there are other useful Zoom type tools that you can use, and I'll put a suggestion of those into the resources file that I'm going to share with everybody later on. Just wait for everybody else to jump back in.
just have to say, the weather has changed here.
Oh,
I
that's
haven't
terrible.
I haven't been out. This is day 12. I have not been out. Today I'm allowed to go out and then the weather changes. So I'm not impressed.
Oh, that's rough. How rough is that?
I know. Oh, it's hailing now, I think. Excellent. I'm trying
Well,
not
bring
to
on,
drink
bring on the
wine. This is
snow
enough
and
to drive me
everything.
to drink wine.
Bring on the snow. Don't worry. Well, you live down in Brighton, don't you?
Yeah. And
Yeah. Okay.
well, it's been lovely for about 12 days.
12 days, and it's the day you've chosen to go out into the rain.
Yeah.
But rough. I think I'll just carry on in the interest of time. So let's just find out who's used Zoom before. Who set it up? You maybe stick your hand up, right? So David's kind of halfway. Renata and Victoria have given it a crack. Linda's not so sure. What I thought we might do is just kind of pair people up. And so you can use Slack and then jump into Zoom. If you haven't already registered, register an account and just connect with each other. Just try and make that happen. Yeah. So we're going to drop out of this call. We're all connected in Slack. We're going to try and do this set up Zoom thing. I just want to see, actually, before we do that, do you think this is a useful thing to do? I just want to check. David thinks yes. Renata, yeah? Are you thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yes, I think it is super useful. I'm just concerned in my case with the time because I really need to go in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Right. So what I'll do is I'll do this like at the end. What I'd like to do is a bit more of a Q&A type thing. I know that it's kind of taken a bit longer than I thought it would too. And some people have had to go. So maybe we'll just do a Q&A thing. So I noticed that there are a bunch of common themes that came through on the questions and answers that people put into the document. Maybe I can just quickly answer some of these to start with. So Linda asked about how to not let remote working take over your day. And I think that's about setting clear boundaries and deciding for yourself, what is your work day? And also setting expectations with other people, because what I find is, particularly working with time zones, sometimes you have to kind of you have to do things in the evening that normally you wouldn't do in order to be able to connect with other people's time zones. And what I try to do is to make sure that at least I have a really productive morning. And if I have a productive morning, then I am generally happy with the way that the rest of the day goes, regardless of what happens, whether it becomes interrupted. And another thing that I typically do is to try and batch the type of work that I do. So I might set aside Monday for a particular type of activity. It might be marketing. Tuesday might be doing some project work. Wednesday might be talking to customers and clients. And I find that orienting your day with common activities is quite a useful thing to be productive, but also to manage your time and to manage that kind of problem. Let's see what else we've got here. So maybe it's better if I just open up to you guys rather than going through this document. There's not much of us here. So Renata, I'm kind of asked you, what kind of questions have you got? I know that you've got to go soon. I'll just take you off mute. Oh, it's not working. Okay. Renata, are you able to unmute yourself?
No, yeah.
There we
fine.
go. Got it.
Well, David, for me, I think it's been, I think you run through whatever questions I had. I had something I haven't wrote down in the spreadsheet was about tools, for remote working. And I think you just floated us with lots of ideas and tools that we can use. So it's wonderful. Thank you very much. Because for me, I've never worked remotely before. So it's a new thing. I did lots of courses and things before, but not work-wise. And funny enough, I had an interview for remote work in the past, and I don't think I passed because I didn't have any experience on that. So yeah, so it's been very useful. Thank you.
Okay, great, fantastic. That's nice feedback. Thank you. I'm going to share like a document that's got all sorts of different tools, different software tools, collaborative tools, scheduling tools, a range of different things. So you can have a look at those things later on. David, have you got any questions? We'll take you off mute. You can manage that. There we go.
Yeah, the one for me, which may not apply to you, I suppose. Well, I suppose you've already answered actually to a certain extent, was regarding the best ways to sort of structure your working day. Because the challenge I've had this over the past week, having had my first week of everyone being at home, I've been trying to replicate a 9-to-5 office day. And with family around, I also realized that I kind of missed the best times with family as well. So so I suppose I know you've talked about being task focused and trying to get things done in the morning, but do you generally find yourself working a 9-to-5, or are you working shorter hours, or do you after your very productive morning, how is the rest of your day structured?
Yeah, mine's maybe a little different. I think it's useful to accept that working remotely is not going to be the same as being in the office. I think it's a false it's a false idea that you can just simply translate these two things. Working through on a computer for who wants to be on a computer for 8 hours a day? Really. And I'm like that. So I try to break up my day. Because I live in Sri Lanka, it's too hot in the middle of the day. So I kind of have like a siesta, I suppose. And so I do my morning thing. I'm really productive then. I have a break probably up until 4 o'clock. And I kind of start a second day. So I'll sometimes I have a nap because I like a nap. It's pretty good. And that just kind of refreshes me. And I might even go so far to kind of treat it like I'm starting a second day. So I'll wake up, I'll have a shower, I'll maybe have a snack, I have a cup of tea, and then I just kind of sit down, and I can do maybe 4 until 7. I might work like that. So I might do 4 hours in the morning and then do 4 until 7, and then that's the end of my day, right? Unless I need to do these calls in the evening just to connect with people, but that's how I approach it. Any way of breaking up the day by changing the style of work that you're doing is really useful too, So, yeah.
Good, thank you.
No worries. Victoria, have you got anything you'd like to ask?
I was interested in knowing obviously you've taken us through a lot of tools and all that I wasn't aware of, which is great. Do you think that, in your experience, Zoom is the best for if you were, you've got a number of people, you're presenting something, you might want questions being asked, etc. Or are there other tools that you think are better? So, for example, for the Launchpad, they use Zoom for the Getting It Done day, but they use the GoToWebinar for our coaching calls. And I've used, where I work, we use WebEx. I've used Adobe Connect for training in the past. So they're different tools. So I just wondered if there's certain tools you use for certain things, or there's a super duper go with this one. This will do everything.
Well, I mean, everybody says go with Zoom at the moment, but the problem with everybody using the Zoom at the moment is that it crashes and so what I'm finding is that during the week, it gets to about 4 in the afternoon here, and America comes online, and it crashes. So there are other tools out there, and I'm going to start recommending to my friends and clients and other people to use these other tools, just because if you're doing a work meeting and you need it to be a stable connection, then Zoom's probably not the option. The difference, what you're talking about, this and GoToWebinar, is about, are you broadcasting? Like as if you're on the stage, and that's why you would use a webinar type platform, and that's what GoToWebinar is. There are many others like Demio, I've just forgotten them, but they're in the resource sheet. There are other tools that you can use, and so I would use these for a team environment all of the time, get everybody in there, that kind of thing.
Okay, but all of these ones that you're going to be recommending people, are they all in the resource sheet?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for asking. Linda, do you have a question?
No, I think you've covered most of it. I mean, the problem I'm having, and you've talked about getting your day structured a bit better. It's just that I am sort of slave to the emails of customers coming in. That's sort of what drives your day anyway, and it is most of what your work is about. But I think I can control that a bit better if I structure it and say, right, in this sort of time I'll look at those, and rather than just responding to every email that comes in. So I mean, that's what you do in the office, but you get to walk around a bit and talk to other people. But when you're sort of sat at your desk at home, you tend to just say, right, I can't move because something else is going to come in, and it's not really healthy.
So how I manage that is I never start my day with email. I say I'm going to use maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, twice a day. Maybe at the end of the morning and towards the end of the day. And just be disciplined like that. You just close the email. Like if you're not, and just say, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes and I'm just going to do whatever I can. And also, if you get a lot of email, you can set up filters and ways to organize it in such a way that you can, emails from these type of customers or whatever, which have a stock standard response where, like, you can set up a template, and there are shortcut tools, certainly with a Mac. I think they have them for Windows too. Those shortcut tools are, you can literally like type a short code, like I don't know, you might type 2 letters and it will just print, like it will just copy the whole email template just there, done. So you can set up these automated features to help manage these things too.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Cool. Olga, have you got any questions? Do you want to take you off? We'll take you off mute. Here we go. Okay. Hi.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to show us all these things that I mostly didn't know about. So thank you for that. I'm one of the few people here probably who's struggling least with working from home because I'm very introverted and I love it. Quite frankly, I'd rather be here than at the office every day.
Brilliant.
But I had the misfortune of being in a very reactive job where the last thing I want to do in the morning is check the emails, but I have to do it because that's my job, to keep up with emails and respond to them and deal with them. So that's one source of stress. The other is my manager is a very sociable, gregarious kind of extroverted person, and every morning she kicks off with a group chat on the instant messaging application, and I really struggle to keep up with that. I feel like I'm being bombarded from all sides with messages and I can't keep up because I really need to talk to one person at a time, and I don't want to seem antisocial and not respond at all. So I just don't know how to manage the irritation of that.
Well, one way I would encourage your extroverted manager to actually do this, to get everybody together on a call, and to to just share what needs to be known about the day or something like that, and to give people the opportunity to ask a question. But you don't need to do all this chat stuff really at the start of the day. There is a tool, well, Slack is a really good way to manage this, actually, because you can organize people into certain channels. You can have that chat channel, right? And really from her point of view, all she needs to know is, what are people doing for today? What are the tasks that you're doing today? What are you going to get done, right? And so when I'm managing teams, we use Slack. We have everybody in the channel. At the start of the day, we say everybody needs to start work before 10 o'clock. You can start whenever you want, but you have to start before 10. And when you start work, you need to let your manager know what are the top 3 things that you're going to do today. And also let them know when you're going to be available, right? Because you might need to go out and stuff like that, you know. And that needs to be managed by the manager. They need to be able to steer priorities to different places. So there are ways to, and I think it's useful for her to understand that as an extrovert, she's dealing with introverts, and you need to communicate differently.
I was just going to say that, David, that I'm very extroverted, and in my previous role, I used to deliver training, so you're doing it virtually with different groups.
Yeah.
And you really need to, if you can tell her, look, it's just too much. I have a very introverted father who works from home all day and loves it, so I have enough insight into, like, you know, just shut up, leave me alone, and stop. Even all of this online is just too much. Like, you're exactly what you're saying. So if I just tell her, just go, you're stressing me out. I don't, keep going if you want to do it, but it's just too much for me. I mean, we have a family WhatsApp group, and we have a family WhatsApp, and then we have an important family, and he's only part of the important family because he doesn't want all the other, like, chit chat. Or we don't overdo it at all, but he's just like, and even on the important one, he's like, does this warrant being on the important family chat? And the rest of them are like, yes. So it's that. I think sometimes as extroverts, we really don't understand how important it is. So I was just echoing what David was saying. Just tell her.
Yeah. It is
Thank
useful.
you. I'm glad you're aware of that. I'm glad you're aware of that. Is sometimes you just feel like you need a buffer.
Yeah. And we need extroverts. We need to be told sometimes, like, you're lovely, but just not now. Just go away. And we'll be like, oh, okay, I'll go and find someone else to play with.
Thanks for your question, Olga. It's so very relevant. Just in this exact situation, I feel the same sometimes. I'm in between, and I can just feel like I've been slammed, and that's it. I've tuned out for the day. You know, I don't want to hear from people. I would like to ask, is it Galia? I don't know how to pronounce your name, but if you're there, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Galia.
Hi.
Hi.
You're pronouncing it okay, yeah.
Okay, great. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
If I think of one, I will let you know, but not at the moment.
Right.
I have to admit that I've had lots of family issues I'm dealing with, so I'm kind of multitasking at the moment. But thank you, it has been useful, and I have picked up tips and tricks on the way, so that's good.
Great, fantastic. And I'm going to try Salija. How do I say?
Salija.
Salija. Yeah. Okay. All right.
First of all, thank you so much for your time today. I do work from home quite a bit. I'm an introvert, so I get what Olga's saying about having an extroverted boss. I think you do have to push back and say that you know, that's great, your little huddle, but it doesn't work for me. But I think the question I had was, I've been thinking of a more nomad sort of work going forward. So that's why I found this even more helpful. And I think the couple of questions I had was, when you made the decision to go down this route, did you retrain? And number two, how do you handle things like taxes?
Yeah, good questions. A lot of what I've done, I've done through, I suppose, self-directed learning, and depending on what kind of activities I needed to do. And just as an example, when I started traveling, I was doing the software program, so I was learning about all sorts of things to do with tech stuff online. But also I've had to teach myself marketing. I've taught myself coding. I've published books. I've done coaching. I've mentored people. I've run courses. I've created courses. There's all sorts of video stuff. I've worked out how to run virtual teams. There's a whole bunch of bits and pieces, and you can choose how. I'm a project manager by trade, so I've just brought those skills into the online space, I suppose, and picked up the things that have interested me, the skill sets that I needed along the way. And there are so many free and paid resources online through course platforms and things that are really useful, that you can teach yourself, really. So you can be a generalist, and that's the nature of the way that I am, or you can be highly specialist, and you can become an expert in your field, and you can leverage that however you want to leverage it. I have a team of people who are developers. They make websites. I've got other people who create marketing funnels. I have copywriters, program managers, obviously finance people, a whole range of different skill sets. Facebook ads people. I've got a video guy. All sorts of different people who I can bring together to make things happen. And all of those people make enough money with their specialization to be able to live and work from home or while traveling, etc. It's all very, very possible. Somebody put a question, put a note in the form before about, is this sustainable? It's totally sustainable. You can transition into a remote style of working and basically reinvent your life. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. To answer your second question about taxes, somebody else asked me about this the other day. It can be complicated in one way, but it can also be very simple, and it really comes down to the way you choose to approach it. In the digital space, certain countries are only just catching up with what to do with the online environment and how to tax it. As a citizen of your country, you've got your responsibilities to pay your tax, etc., and declare your income. So when you're traveling around the world, it can be a bit confusing about what to do. What I recommend to people is wherever your home country is, if that's where you would return to and live, set up your tax base there to start with, because that means you're paying in, as an example in England, you're paying international insurance, you're creating a longevity with your profile as a taxpayer, etc., that kind of thing. And tax authorities as a small business, they generally won't chase after you because they're more interested in bigger fish to fry kind of thing. But if you're an American, as an example, as an American, you're obligated to declare your income regardless of where you live in the world. So the American tax department tracks you around the world. And I have friends who have that kind of problem. It's not a problem, it's a responsibility that they've got to meet. I do also have friends who choose to base them in tax havens, as you might call it. They are tax resident in places like Malta or the Caribbean, and they do that because it's advantageous. They have the flexibility to be able to do that. One other approach is in Estonia, they have a thing for digital businesses and for startups called the e-residency program. And you can register to set your business up in Estonia. You have to do your tax returns and obligations in Estonia like you would as a normal business. You have to, I think, turn over a certain amount of money, and you need to pay certain fees to local accountants and lawyers, etc., that kind of thing, in order to file your returns. But these can be advantageous ways to set up your business in such a way that is beneficial for you when you're starting out. Yep. So you're paying less tax, you're keeping more cash in your business, you're able to reinvest in certain ways to get moving a lot faster.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different services out there that are oriented towards working remotely. Like bookkeeping systems like Xero. Xero's you might know of. They're really, really useful for keeping track of things. So you have to be organized, but using software and tools is a really nice way to go about it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. Very helpful.
Okay, that was a long way to answer the question, but they're good questions. Deval, I know you joined a little later, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to, like everybody else, ask a question. I'm happy to answer it.
I missed the first part. So it's like, how do you how do you ensure that people take you seriously if you are working online or something, That can...
Yeah, can you be a little bit more specific?
It's like, how do you ensure that people take you more seriously if you are working online?
Yeah, okay. So this is about credibility, right?
Yeah. So I mean, no. What the people around me, I mean, they don't know that. Suppose if I'm starting to work remotely, so how can I make sure that they know that I'm doing something? I mean, how can I build my credibility?
Yeah, okay. So LinkedIn is a good place to start. It's just when you're starting out, I suppose it's anyway. If you're starting with anything new, you need to be able to practice, and you need to build up a profile. It's like building a portfolio of work, right? If you're an artist, a photographer, they always do things based on a portfolio, and it's no different with the nature of any new work that you do, regardless of whether it's selling something out the front of your house or whether it's setting up something in a digital space, and always a good way to do that is to offer to work for free for somebody, so you can get a few small, easy things under your belt, and that is just building a connection with somebody who's doing something that you might be interested in, offering your time, and in exchange for them training you, you can do some work, right? So the exchange is a beneficial exchange, of course. It doesn't always have to be around money, and that gives you the opportunity to put something down in your portfolio to say, this is the kind of work that I do, and this is how the quality of it, right? I would like to invite Victoria maybe to answer that, because I get the feeling that she's probably got some views too. Oh, hold on. There we go. Try again. Victoria.
Hey, I was just thinking, I suppose it's a great time to now, because so many people are working from home, and where people have said, no, you can't do, or corporate companies, if you're working for a company and they kind of mandate you to be in the office, or possibly you're allowed to work from home 1 day a week, or there's different views, or even within an organization you have leaders that say, yeah, just, but guess to your point earlier, David, as long as you're doing what you're meant to be doing and you deliver, I don't really care how you do it. But there are others who are like, I must see you, and or sort of, so I know that you're doing something. But at the moment, everybody is working from home, so people are having to adjust, and suddenly all these jobs that people said you couldn't do at home, you're kind of having to figure out how to do them, and probably finding that you can do them just as well. And I think it's probably just the same David's output, isn't it? If you're delivering things and people are like, okay, well, that's great, you're obviously doing it, and start to let go of the how you do it, when you do it, and focus more on that you've actually done it by the time. And I didn't think of that at all, Dave, about the LinkedIn, where you've actually got somewhere where you're going, look, this is everything that I do, especially if it's to do with external. If it's internal with a corporate company, I think it's about figuring out with you and your leader how to communicate what I'm doing. So do I do daily updates, weekly updates? How do I make sure you know that I'm on top of everything and doing that, and proactively communicating with them in the way that they want, so they feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, it's a good point. There is a thing about the online world and working remotely, and the problem is, you would have seen it on the internet. There are a lot of people out there that are sharks selling all sorts of different stuff that you really can't work out, is the stuff credible or not. And the credibility comes from using tools like LinkedIn to get people to reflect on the quality of your work, so it is about delivery, but it's also about getting that feedback and being able to publicly use that feedback, like any other person might do. Running a restaurant might get some reviews or something like that. The other thing is that, this thing about having qualifications versus experience, and we all grow up in this kind of world where you need a degree to go and clean the toilet or something like that. And the reality is that in business, people really just want to know that you can do the job. And so don't feel constrained about feeling like you need to go out there and retrain in something X, Y, Z before you start giving something a go. I think anybody who shows the the initiative and put their hand up to say, I want to come and work with you. If you wouldn't mind teaching me a few things, I'll work with you for free. If you've got the right character and qualities, people will take you under their umbrella and help you along your way. You know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers things for you. I think that's kind of, we're coming towards the end of the call. It's kind of gone maybe 20, 30 minutes over where I thought we might run with this. I did have some other things that I wanted to be able to share and do together. But it's shown me, it's been a real useful call that showed me that there's a lot of stuff out there to think about with this remote space. And you can work in this remote field in a small company or a big company, and a really structured company that wants you to be some productive robot, or in a connecting and social collaborating type company, you know, in the kind of team where people care about each other. So there are all these different work environments to be involved in, depending on the nature of the type of work you like to do and your style. And remote working gives you all of the flexibility you need to redesign your lifestyle, to also do the other things that you want to do that aren't only oriented around work and making money and that kind of thing too. You know. So I'd encourage anybody to give it a go. If you've got any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything, to get on a call at other times. What I'm going to do is share some resources in the Slack channel, and probably into the Facebook group for other people. I've been recording this, so I might probably edit it a little bit and get it out to people as a resource too. So I thank you very much for joining me today to try this thing out. It's been my shift project, and I really appreciate that you're here. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
We will catch up in the Facebook group with the Launchpad, and if you want to do a paperclip thing, let me know, because it's something that I'd like to have another go at too. But for today, have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll catch up soon. See ya. Bye.
Bye.